Filmed in black and white, the setting is a beleaguered-looking rural homestead of a man and a woman of around 30 years old, both white, who resemble farmers of the Dust Bowl or the Depression. They sit facing outward from their front stoop, she with a book and he with a guitar. He's leaning forward over it, watching his fingering around the frets, strumming and picking with the stump of his left arm, amputated just below the elbow. She is smiling, watching him. Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. The homesteaders relaxing on their farmhouse stoop. Title: Everhand. The woman's attention returned to her book, but continuing to smile. The man at his chores, heaving straw bales off a stack in a barely lit barn, dragging and piling heavy feed sacks against the house in the heat, hammering a sheet metal cap onto a fence post, and losing the nail, sorting mail on a table, an envelope stamped "Final Notice," an ad for roofing and exterior repairs, a last flyer, with a realistically sketched human hand rising from a hinged metal wrist behind a big bold logo for Everhand. The man, curious as he studies it, sets it down, sees his partner and himself smiling from a framed photo nearby on the table, presses his lips together winsomely. Outdoors, he drags a feed bag along a fence, and with a heave he stands it up against it. Rising from a squat, he looks over the fence into the adjacent enclosure, then abruptly turns about to see a man standing rigidly at a distance staring at him from a sheep field, wearing a dark suit and holding a silver briefcase. The farmer trudges toward the man in the suit, while the woman, by a window inside with her book, watches through a gap in the curtains. On the back of the suited man's neck, above the collar, a blocky microchip seems embedded in his flesh. In one fluid, sweeping gesture, he swings the silver briefcase in front of him, unlatches it, and presents it open to the homesteader, who stares agape at the contents. Inside, a sleek black prosthetic fist and forearm raises its thumb, printed in the Everhand manual. 1. Always fuel. 2. Never remove. And 3. Avoid interference. Under lamplight, inside, the man marvels over the Everhand, now an attached extension of his amputated arm. The 4 fingers extend and close as he watches, followed by the thumb. He smiles. The woman gazing down at a cutting board in the kitchen chopping vegetables. The man, across from her, sweeping the Everhand grandiosely through the air, whooshing through pursed lips. She notices and smiles. In an empty attic, the suited man cross-legged, the microchip in his neck, lighting up and blinking. The ever-handed farmer jauntily blows a harmonica. The Everhand fingers spasm, the woman winces, and the suited man's microchip blinks wildly. Gently steadying the woman's now bloodily gashed hand, one of the fingers of the Everhand rattles, and the gash closes. The man and woman stare at each other, their mouths open. 3 of a possible 10 bars light up a display labeled Fuel on the Everhand. A lamb tied to a post outside a closed barn door. On the way to open it, the man passes an axe. Releasing the barn door abruptly, he stares at the Everhand. The fuel gauge down to only one glowing bar, blinking, looks at the sheep, then over his shoulder to the axe, leaning against the barn. Sitting in a dark corner of an animal stall, he wipes his Everhand across the axe head, touching a blob of pooled blood that suddenly shrinks as if being absorbed, and 6 glowing bars appear on the fuel display. On his face, titillation, then sudden self-consciousness, and he nervously looks around. In the attic, the suited man with just a hint of smile, the farmer manically rinsing and toweling his hands at a sink. Then on the toilet lid with his head down, rocking furiously. Visions of the suited man cross-eyed, mouth dribbling. The woman screams, himself screaming as he rams a crowbar between his stump and the Everhand, pounding it with a sledgehammer, squeezing it in a vise, the agony on his face intensifying with each screw turn. Then suddenly his face relaxes and he drops to the floor. Coming to his senses, he sees his bare stump sticking from his rolled-up shirt sleeve as it always used to, and smiles. Rising to his feet at his workbench, where the Everhand is still smoldering in the vise. He stares adoringly down at his stump. He looks up and out the workshop windows opposite him and loses his smile. He turns from the windows, rushes out a door into bright daylight and freezes. The suited man standing rigid, staring oddly at him from an enclosure attached to the workshop. The farmer glances to his stump and dashes off and out across a vast field extending into the distance. The suited man watches his distant figure recede. With the junk mail just arrived, an urgent recall notice shows a likeness of the microchip in the suited man's neck. Reading it, the woman squints and cocks her head. At the margins of the field, her fleeing partner collapses to the ground, then scrambles on hand and knees to keep ahead of the suited man, now suddenly staring down at him. The farmer on his back lifts his head slightly to face him more squarely, even as he continues to uselessly kick and push himself away on his elbows. The suited man pulls a pen-sized cylinder from his jacket, stretches it a meter wide between 2 hands, raises it like a sword, and draws back as if to strike with full force as the farmer grimaces in horror. Suddenly shuddering, the suited man tilts back, with smoke rising from his neck and milky liquid dribbling from his closed lips. He crumples, revealing the woman holding a harmonica to her mouth, watching him fall and continuing to stare at the ground. Blowing once more, for no obvious reason except that it's better to be safe than sorry. As her gaze lifts from the ground nearby to farther ahead, she smiles at the sight of her partner on his back with his head up, smiling back at her. Back on their front stoop, the woman with her book, the man with his guitar, leaned back, casting casual glances at his partner, deftly fingering, briskly picking, and smiling as he plays. Audio description provided by Social Audio Description Collective. Written and narrated by Oliver Baker. Blind quality control by Thomas Reed. Abbreviated credits. Directed and edited by Shane Hillier. Written by Mario Kassem. Produced by Sarah Beth Budd and Lee Cleveland. Starring Sarah Beth Budd, Lee Cleveland, and Ron Williams. Credits continue. No animals were harmed in the making of this film. This film was made for the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge.